What if the lights went out tonight and never came back on? Not a storm, not a local outage. Every light, every screen, every signal gone simultaneously, globally, permanently. This is not science fiction. Scientists call it the most underestimated threat facing modern civilization, and right now, we are overdue. This is the story of the first 60 minutes after the world goes dark. Minute by minute, decision by decision, collapse by collapse. T-0, the Carrington Event reborn. On September 1st, 1859, a solar flare of almost incomprehensible magnitude struck the Earth. Telegraph wires burst into flames. Aurora Borealis was visible as far south as Cuba. Operators received shocks through their equipment. The entire global communications network, primitive as it was obliterated in hours. Today, that same event would be unimaginably worse. Minute 0. It begins without warning. At 2:47 in the afternoon, Eastern Time, a Class X-45 solar flare, the most powerful ever recorded, detonates on the sun's surface. A wall of magnetized plasma, 200,000 miles wide, tears through the solar system at 7 million miles per hour. 18 hours later, it arrives. The magnetosphere shudders, compresses. The induced currents are instantaneous and catastrophic. Every high-voltage transformer on Earth, the critical nodes of the power grid, the ones that take years to manufacture and cannot be quickly replaced, overload simultaneously. The lights go out. Not a flicker, not a dimming, instant total, absolute darkness. In New York City, 8.3 million people lose power in 0.3 seconds. In London, Tokyo, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, the same. The global grid, which has never failed simultaneously, collapses like a single organism receiving a fatal shock. For 1 full second, there is silence. Then the screaming starts. Minutes 1 through 5. The first 60 seconds are chaos with no frame of reference. People assume it's local, a trip breaker, a neighborhood outage. Someone looks at their phone, no signal. They try anyway. The call doesn't connect. At 35,000 feet, 9,728 commercial aircraft are in the air worldwide. In the cockpits of modern fly-by-wire jets, aircraft like the Boeing 787 and Airbus A350, flight management computers begin throwing error codes. Navigation systems flicker. Some fail entirely. Pilots immediately switch to manual instruments, but those instruments, many of them electronic, are also compromised. Air traffic control centers in Atlanta, London, Frankfurt go dark. Radar screens go black. Controllers are suddenly blind, unable to see, unable to communicate, unable to separate aircraft that are now flying deaf and unseen through crowded airspace. The protocol is immediate. Every aircraft declares emergency. Pilots descend to pre-assigned altitudes. They look out the windows. On the ground, the situation escalates faster. Traffic signals in every major city go dark simultaneously. Within 90 seconds, intersections become gridlocked. Emergency vehicles, ambulances, fire trucks cannot move. In Los Angeles, a 12-car pileup blocks the 405 freeway in the first 3 minutes. No one can call for help. 911 systems, which run on the same grid, are completely offline. Hospitals switch to backup generators. In well-equipped facilities, this takes 45 seconds. Surgeries already underway continue. Life support machines stay on for now. But every hospital administrator already knows the generators run on diesel fuel. Most have 72 hours of supply. Some have less. In data centers worldwide, the physical infrastructure of the internet, UPS battery systems activate, servers stay online. But they won't last long without grid power. The internet as we know it has a clock counting down. Everyone still thinks this is temporary. Minutes 6 through 15. By minute 6, the first reality check begins. Someone with a battery-powered radio, an increasingly rare device, tunes to an emergency frequency and hears static, then a voice. It's a government emergency broadcast, crackling and distorted. The message is simple. This is a nationwide event. Do not call emergency services unless your life is in immediate danger. Remain calm. Await further instructions. That message plays once, then the transmitter goes offline. At nuclear power plants across the United States, 93 reactors, operators initiate scram protocols. Control rods drop. Reactors go into safe shutdown. This works as designed, but these plants still require active cooling for days after shutdown to prevent meltdown. That cooling requires power. Emergency diesel generators kick in. Like the hospitals, they have limited fuel. Financial markets flatline. Trading systems go offline. Billions of dollars in algorithmic trades are left hanging in mid-execution. ATMs, which require network connectivity, are useless. People begin lining up at bank branches. The doors are locked. The staff cannot access the systems. In grocery stores, registers stop working. Some store managers tell customers to leave. Others open the doors and tell people to take what they need. Within minutes, shelves begin to empty. Gas stations are offline. The electric pumps that push fuel up from underground tanks have no power. Major roadways in every city are beginning to become impassable. Minutes 16 through 30. By the 16-minute mark, something critical is happening inside water treatment plants. Water doesn't flow by gravity in most modern cities. It flows because of pumps, electric pumps. When those pumps lose power, pressure in the water mains begins to drop. In high-rise buildings, water pressure is already insufficient to reach upper floors. Toilets stop flushing. Taps run dry. In hospitals, this is immediately critical. Outside, the temperature matters. In winter cities, heating systems have stopped working. In Chicago in January, a building begins losing heat within an hour. Within 6 hours, pipes begin to freeze. Emergency managers are now fully aware this is a national catastrophe. Satellite phones, which some agencies relied on as backup, are also failing. The CME has damaged several low Earth orbit satellite constellations. Starlink is offline. GPS satellites are degraded. The military begins mobilizing. National Guard units are activated in 12 states, but communication between units is severely limited. In cities, the first reports of looting begin. Police dispatch systems are down. Officers on patrol are essentially on their own. People are beginning to understand this is not going to be fixed tonight. Minutes 31 through 45. At the 30-minute mark, panic becomes the operating system of civilization. In suburbs and cities, people begin moving on foot, in cars, until the roads become completely impassable. Toward family, toward higher ground, toward anywhere that feels safer than where they are. Grocery stores in every major city have been stripped. People are filling bathtubs with the last of the water pressure, filling every container they can find. At hospitals, the calculus is becoming brutal. Administrators are already triaging, deciding which systems to keep powered and which to let go. In ICUs, nurses are manually ventilating patients when mechanical ventilators draw too much power. Across Europe, the situation is identical. In Asia, it is the early hours of the morning. Hundreds of millions of people woke up in the dark. In dense megacities, Shanghai, Jakarta, Dhaka, the combination of darkness, heat, and lack of information is causing mass panic. There is no internet, there is no social media to coordinate. There is no authoritative voice reaching most people. The loudest communication happening right now is rumor. Minutes 46 through 60. By minute 46, the global picture comes into terrifying focus. U.S. Space Command confirms the CME was a direct full-disk hit. Every satellite in commercial low Earth orbit has experienced critical system failure. GPS, the backbone of navigation for aviation, shipping, agriculture, and warfare, is severely degraded globally. The New York Stock Exchange will not open tomorrow. At sea, hundreds of cargo ships loaded with food, medicine, fuel are operating without GPS navigation. Captains are plotting by paper charts and celestial navigation, skills that most modern mariners have barely practiced. The President of the United States is aboard Air Force One, airborne when the event hit, now circling over the Atlantic on backup systems. Communication with allied heads of state is nearly impossible. In the Kremlin, in Beijing, in Brussels, every head of government is in the same situation, aware of the scale of what has happened, unable to communicate it, unable to coordinate a response. The nuclear arsenals of the world are in standby mode. But the inability of heads of state to communicate with each other, to say we are not doing this deliberately, creates its own terrifying risk. At 60 minutes in, the immediate death toll from direct causes is estimated in the thousands. Without power restoration, epidemiologists project that number reaches the millions within 2 weeks. Without power restoration within a month, the societal systems that sustain 8 billion human lives begin to irreversibly fail. The real threat. Here's what makes this so frightening. It has almost happened. In July 2012, a Carrington-scale CME erupted from the sun. It missed Earth by 9 days. 9 days. If it had erupted 2 weeks earlier, it would have been a direct hit. Daniel Baker of the University of Colorado called it a very near miss. He estimated the damage to the U.S. alone at $2 trillion and a recovery time of 4 to 10 years. The U.S. government has known about this risk for decades. Legislation to harden the grid has been introduced in Congress multiple times. It has never passed. The cost to protect the U.S. grid, roughly $2 to $4 billion, less than 2 weeks of federal spending. The cost to do nothing when the next CME hits, potentially the collapse of modern civilization as we know it. We are, right now, one solar event away from the scenario you just watched. The question isn't whether the sun will do this again. The question is whether we'll be ready. The answer right now is no.